Good morning, folks. Welcome to the Decision 7 webinar for TCLAS. We'll go ahead and let folks get started here. So get started maybe in 1 or 2 minutes. So hang out and then we'll go from there. All right, looks like we have steadied out. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to the TCLAS Deep Dive webinar for Decision 7, which is the school day and calendar redesign. Some quick introductions. My name is Brian Doran. I'm the manager of additional days school year here at TEA. We also have Shaylin Macedonio here. I'll let her introduce herself.
Hey guys, my name is Shaylin Macedonio, and I am a summer learning project manager at TEA. You may have seen me on the Decision 8 webinar yesterday, but we're so glad you're here. Thanks for tuning in.
Great, thanks Shaylin. And then we also have Andrew Hodge, Director of Innovative Instructional Models here. Andrew,
hey everybody. Yeah, hey everybody, thanks for joining us today.
Great, thanks. So throughout this webinar, if you have questions, do feel free to drop them into the Q&A box. We'll have some time for Q&A at the very end, the last 10 minutes or so we have blocked off for Q&A. If there is something pressing, Shaylin might interrupt and kind of highlight that in the midst of the presentation as well. So do feel free to drop those in as questions pop up. So agenda today we have 3 things. First, a quick recap of TCLAS. We'll then go into Decision 7 itself, do a deep dive in what school day and calendar redesign looks like. And then we'll close out with Q&A and next steps. So TCLAS is the Texas COVID Learning Acceleration Supports Initiative. And it's essentially a set of targeted supports and additional funding from both state and federal sources to support folks with the learning acceleration framework. So this is a combined grant application, discretionary, non-competitive, meant to mimic a formula grant, where we have a number of different initiatives, all in this one application that does not include things like narrative responses or the need for grant writers. And the thought here is we are trying to simplify this process and make it as accessible for folks as possible. So this application will award out $1.4 billion. It will span 15 different initiatives here at TEA, and it's all part of one application. The different components of TCLAS are, you'll see on the screen right here. So we have 5 key accelerated learning strategies with strategic planning kind of encompassing all of those. And then instructional materials, teacher pipelines, more time, and innovative school models. So we're looking at high quality instructional materials, we're looking at talent pipelines that support teachers, and then more specifically for Decision 7, we're looking at how more time can support our students and teachers. Each of these then correlates with 10 available decision points in the TCLAS application. So as you're going through the application, the guidebook, these webinars, we have them separated out by decision points. So again, we're Decision 7 here. And this is meant to be an a la carte kind of selection process for districts. So if you're only interested in the strategic planning piece, you can apply to Decision 1 and nothing else. If you are interested in HQIM and school day and calendar redesign, you would apply to Decision 2 and Decision 7. And then also that can span all the way to an application for all 10 different decision points. Each of these key columns then relates to similar TEA initiatives. So things like RSSP, Texas Home Learning and CRIMSI, Grow Your Own for teacher pipelines, ADSY, PTech, and School Action Fund are some highlights there. And today we are talking again, Decision 7, school day and calendar redesign. So let's go ahead and jump into what we're talking about here. So I want to ground ourselves within the key problem that we are looking to address here. And that is the concept of, well, two key components. First is summer slide. And so this is what we have seen historically over the course of summers, where low-income students in particular have a lack of academic opportunity over the course of summer. And this will lead to a slide of academic and a gap of up to 3 grade levels for our low-income students as compared to their higher income peers by 5th grade. And that's just from summer slide alone and these lack of academic opportunities. We also know that COVID in the last year has been difficult on all involved, and it has caused additional achievement setbacks. And so just looking at STAAR results alone, we know that in reading, we've seen a 4% drop in satisfactory scores for our students. And in math, a much more even dramatic drop there, with a 16% drop in student achievement obtaining a satisfactory score. So 2 key components here really driving the importance of kind of the academic opportunities for students. And so in order to catch students up, we know that we need to make some significant changes. And so we've codified 3 key supports here that fit in with TCLAS as well, with those central 3 columns that we had highlighted. So instructional materials, supported teachers, and more time. So we are specifically looking at expanded learning time. How can we deal with this additional time to help support our students make up for the lost instruction, both from COVID as well as minimize any impact from future summer slide as we embark on this post-pandemic world. And when we're thinking through time, it's very easy to think, okay, well, we have expanded learning time, great, let's just throw in as much additional instruction as possible. And what this decision point, what our initiative does, is we are attempting to make sure we're designing additional time in a way that makes it sustainable for both students and teachers. So we have an opportunity here, not just to add time, but to add time in a way that challenges the way that your traditional instructional schedule and instructional calendar might work. So we are attempting to solve for a couple of things. For a student perspective, we know students have limited time in the day for brain breaks. They have limited time for additional play, limited time for enrichment. These are key components for a student experience. And then also these are key inputs for strengthening the instructional program at a school. So we know if students have the opportunity for these pieces, the efficiency, the ability for that actual instructional time increases. So key pieces there. On the teacher side of things, we know that they're stressed out, right? So there's a huge number of student expectations that teachers are responsible for, especially at the elementary level, for those core content teachers. It's not unusual to hear of 12-hour workdays for teachers with minimal breaks. And then we also know that there's limited opportunities for job-embedded planning. So there might be good chunks at the beginning of the school year or maybe mid-year, but weekly planning opportunities can be elusive sometimes. So what if we use additional time in a way that redesigns the school year? So to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to take 180 reimagined school days. That's a traditional calendar year of 180 days. And we're going to add 30 additional days. With those days, we're going to change the schedule. So we're going to slightly reduce the daily academic instruction on the first 180 reimagined days. We're going to add that instruction, that academic content, over the course of the 30 additional days. So we're not actually losing out on the instructional time. We're just extending it over the additional days for 210 total. Then with each of these days, we are now adding an additional recess and adding an additional specials rotation. What these 2 pieces look like might vary depending on the campus or district, but these are 2 examples of what we've seen folks look at. And we're doing this every day. So from a student perspective, they now have an additional recess, additional specials rotation. This is a much more sustainable schedule for students, and it's an ability for them to step back and give them the brain breaks that they need. From a teacher perspective, this will allow for additional planning time for them and allow them to really build their craft and hone their craft. So we've had this number of districts go through this planning process to design and redesign this their school year over the course of the past year. And so these districts have gone through a process called ADSY PEP, Additional Day School Year Planning and Execution Program. We'll talk a bit more about that in a second. But I want to highlight some of these districts real quick just to see that we have folks across the state that are already doing this work, that are already thinking through this and doing a great job. So 7 districts on the screen right now: Crowley, Aldine, Spring, Alief, Southside, Pawnee, and Raymondville have all done extensive planning processes and are in the midst of implementing their first year of a redesigned program at specific campuses within their districts. So Aldine, for example, this is a calendar that they're implementing in the 21-22 school year for Vines Elementary School. They actually started last week, July 9th, and they are adding additional days throughout the course of their calendar for 210 total days. They're using additional days school year funding. We'll talk a bit more about that in a second. And their calendar then starts July 9th and ends June 9th. So a full 11-month calendar, really extending that ability for all of those students, all those teachers to maximize impact and making it more sustainable for all involved. Then at the back end, students have a 4-week break. So there is still a break for students. They do still receive a summer break, but it's not the 9, 10, 11, 12-week break that we might see for some students that really can maximize the 4-week schedule, rather, can really support students in minimizing any sort of summer slide and the risk of summer slide. A couple other examples here from the first group of districts that have gone through this. Pawnee ISD here on the left is a 1 school district here. They are southeast of San Antonio. They started their calendar this week and have been doing some really innovative changes with how they're thinking about enrichment. And then we're also seeing some press from folks such as Alief and Aldine and Spring, I think was mentioned in this article as well. On the right-hand side of the screen, we will be sharing these slides later if you do want to take a look at some of them. And so just highlighting some of the great work that folks are already doing and seeing this as an example and an opportunity for everyone on the call to consider for their district and some of the campuses at their district. So what does this actually look like? So we know I highlighted a couple districts there. We talked high level what the changes we're looking at would be. From a Decision 7 standpoint now, coming back to TCLAS, we are looking to align LEAs with a robust planning process to implement this redesign. And we're looking to do this through a very strong redesign planning process. We've had those 7 districts have already gone through this process in year 1. We're currently making iterations and adjustments based off of lessons learned. And so it's going to be an even stronger planning process next year. And so with this planning process, they're also planning to utilize additional days school year funding. So part of HB3, ADSY adds half-day formula funding for any school systems looking to add those extra days. So add 30 days, up to 30 days to any elementary school grades pre-K through 5. So Decision 7 really couples these two things. It's a strong redesign planning process and it's ADSY funding for those pre-K through 5 campuses. And these will be implemented essentially through what we have called the ADSY Planning and Execution Program, ADSY PEP, the full year redesign grant. From a district perspective, this is separated out into 2 components, a planning year and execution years. The planning year would take place in the 21-22 school year with a quick asterisk that we'll name here later. The 21-22 school year, you would kick off your part 1 strategic plan development in fall. You would look for your plan review and approval in winter, December, January, and a board approval of a calendar in early 2022. And then you jump into part 2 development with that final plan being submitted end of April, early May for an implementation then in the summer of 22. Throughout the course of this planning year, you'll have supports from a learning community perspective, things like an ADSY kickoff summit. You'll have technical assistance, additional workshops throughout the course of the year to talk with other districts that are going through the similar change. And then you'll execute and go through kind of this continuous improvement process where you're looking at how the program is doing, how students are doing, how teachers are feeling about it, and make adjustments for future years. So we'll be looking at attendance rates, we'll be looking at interim results, things like that to make targeted adjustments for the program. And then submit a reflection and revision document to codify those changes and make adjustments for future years.
Hey, Brian.
Yep.
Since we're still close by to the Aldine slide, could you scroll back to that? We had a great question come in asking for just a once more explanation of how their Wednesdays are functioning
Great.
in the redesign calendar.
Yep, excellent. So they are using, again, this is a strong planning process coupled with additional day school year funding. So the additional day school year provides half-day formula funding for up to 30 days. And so they are using 30 days here, and they've placed them throughout the course of the year instead of as one chunk. And the theory behind this is if you provide it in one chunk, ADSY days are by statute non-compulsory for students. And so there might be some, there's more persuasion and marketing and student convincing that must happen if you place them all in one chunk at the beginning of the year. Whereas if you go kind of with this every Wednesday schedule, it's more an inherent part of the regular school year. And from a student perspective, it really looks like every single day is just like, this is how my school year flows instead of this chunk of additional days. And so this is kind of how we differentiate this from maybe your traditional summer program into a more aligned and coherent school year itself.
Thank you.
Great. All right, so the ADSY planning and execution program, we have two components, two cohorts. One is voluntary summer learning. If you are more interested in summer learning, that can still be extremely impactful. We do have a great program as part of Decision 8, so I encourage you to take a look at the recording and slides from that, which occurred yesterday in the webinar. But we are focused on full year redesign here. So we're rethinking the school day and calendar, a completely revamped 7x6 weeks calendar, so 210 days with those daily schedule changes to increase both teacher planning time and student play and enrichment. Core supports here, or core program components. We talked through a couple of these in the timeline slide for ADSY PEP, but really the central piece of this is a strategic plan development. So you're looking at a comprehensive strategic plan that really captures all of the key components that would be required for a robust and thorough redesign. Things like the operational adjustments, looking at HR changes and district transfer policies, looking at the academic pieces, what instructional materials are you selecting and how are you adjusting them for a 210-day calendar. All those different pieces in different sections are captured within the strategic plan. We also have a series of additional planning and execution resources, templates, tools, and now a growing example of other district examples with Cycle 1. And then this key piece here of the learning community itself. So you'd be going through this process with other districts who are also looking at this. This is one of the things that we saw as a key support for folks. One of the things that was most useful as you're rethinking things like how this might impact a fiscal year or again, those district transfer policies. We had some great discussions among districts about how they're just addressing different things throughout the course of their planning process. That really drives home a more thorough and gives you a group of folks to talk to as issues arise as well. As we're thinking through these core program components, we also have supports for you through this grant program. So supports, the first one is approved technical assistance vendors. That is the same as support, that should say 7A, sorry, I thought that was fixed. Support 7A. The second is an ADSY project manager and steering committee that supports 7B. And then the third is a new opportunity for TCLAS folks. And that's operational funding to get to 180 instructional days. And that's support 8C. We'll talk about a bit about that here in a second. So support 7A is approved technical assistance vendors. So we know this is a very lengthy planning process. It takes a lot of change. It takes a lot of thought partnership. And so to support you in that process, we have identified 5 vendors that are supports through that design and implementation process. So these folks have all been involved with ADSY PEP in the first year in some form or fashion. And so are familiar with what it takes to get this program over the finish line into the first year of implementation. So we have a base funding amount of $100,000 plus $15,000 additional per campus in the planning year, and then an additional smaller amount of support in the implementation year. So you can still utilize those folks for that ongoing continuous improvement. Just a quick highlight of these vendors: Always Be Learning, Engage to Learn, 4-Point Education Partners, Software Partners, and then WestStat has coupled with Resources for Learning as well. And I believe Software Partners also has a partner organization that they're working with too. Support 7B is an ADSY project manager and steering committee. So we are providing funding for a project manager whose time then would be specifically devoted to getting your ADSY program off the ground and into implementation. So there's funding of 1 FTE for the first year, $125,000, and then also funding available in execution years as well, depending on total funding availability. This has been a key support for districts, a key role for districts as they're going through this process. Having someone truly drive the steering committee and the role has been helpful. And then also just manage all the different cross-functionality pieces that are involved in a change like this. Really excited to be able to provide this support through the grant program as folks think about a redesign. Support 7C is operational funding to get to 180 instructional days. And so this is one of the things that we've seen as a key barrier for accessing ADSY funds is getting up to the base requirement of 180 instructional days. As most districts across the state, the average instructional calendar across the state is, I think, 172 or 173 instructional days. That might be increasing now as folks are taking a look at adjusting calendars in response to COVID. But a couple of years ago, that's where we were for sure. And so it does take a commitment from a district perspective to adjust your base calendar up to 180 days for each participating campus. And so what we've done is we've been able to secure some funding to make that process easier. And so if you opt into support 7C and are approved, you would then receive additional 5 days of ADA per student enrolled at each participating campus. And so we're treating that as $52 a day for each student. So an example here is a 100 student program would receive an additional $26,000 of funding just to help bridge that 180-day gap. So those are the key supports. I do want to highlight where you will find these within the guidance document itself. And so we on the Texas, on the TCLAS website, we have a TCLAS guidance document that goes into more detail in all of the different decision points. And so just highlighting some of the key pieces here from a support 7 perspective. So 7A, again, is the technical assistance and learning community. So we're looking at opting into this from that first question. You would be eligible to choose or be matched with one of the vendors here on the screen to support you in the design and implementation process. For anyone on the call that did go through the ADSY PEP in 2020, 2021, so for those 7 districts that I highlighted at the beginning, there's also an opportunity here for some execution funding for you all. So that is that second question there. And then again, the base funding amount here is $100,000 for the base amount per LEA, and then an additional $15,000 per campus, and then $50,000 for each implementation year. Support 7B is a project manager salary, fairly straightforward here. Basically, would you like a project manager or not? You would need to be participating in support 7A to be eligible for 7B, meaning you would need to have a technical assistance vendor in order to also access the project manager salary, but we really see them support working in tandem. So this would really strengthen the program. So you would select here, yes, here, and then our goal is to provide salary for execution years as well. That is going to be dependent on total level of interest and available funding. And then support 7C, again, is the operational funding. So the third option of support that you would have, you would need to be participating in at least support 7A, which is the technical assistance. And that again is 5 days of ADA funding at $52 per student per day. And again, that caveat that we are aiming to support in execution years, that's going to be dependent on interest and availability. Also in the guidance document, I want to highlight the assurances for Decision 7. So we've talked through a number of different pieces here about kind of at a high level what this program looks like. There are a series of assurances that we do want you to take a look at that we would want any district that's participating to be able to sign off on. A couple of the key ones that I'm highlighting here are the ability to meet any ADSY and ADSY PEP implementation requirements for those additional days. Those only need to be met in the execution year. So you don't already need to be at 180 days, but you would need to be able to bring that 180-day and essentially 210-day calendar to your board in preparation for the 22-23 school year or the implementation year that you select. The second is commit to building a strong steering committee, and we really want to emphasize the importance of bringing and including a representative on the finance team in that process, just to make sure that long-term sustainability of this program is included in all of the different decisions that are being made. And then the third is a commitment to agree to use high-quality instructional materials as we have further lined out in the assurances as well. Those can all be found on page 63 of the TCLAS guidance document. And then the final thing in terms of timeline here, if you're thinking through this and saying, okay, so we are at, we are in the summer of 21 already, and I would really like to have my ducks in a row a little bit more before even starting the planning year. That would be an option. And so that is option 2 here, where you are going through planning in the 22-23 school year and then executing in the 23-24 school year. We are encouraging folks where they're able to push that to this year. So start the planning year in school year 21-22 and then execution in 22-23 to really get that program started, maximize the use of available ESSER dollars, both through TCLAS as well as anything locally. But I do want to highlight this option 2 as an additional option for folks. If you're kind of looking at this timeline and thinking a 23-24 implementation makes a lot more sense for us. So let's pause here for some questions, and then we do have some final closeout slides once we get through these questions.
Thanks, Brian. Thus far, we have had only a few questions in the Q&A box, so feel free to slide some in there if you have additional questions.
Great. We do have a question here around special education and kind of the overlap or coexistence of extended school year. So the extended school year as a special education program. The question being, do campuses consider the additional days, ADSY days, as part of ESY, or would that occur during the month during summer when ESY would occur? And this, I could see that going both ways. I think the important thing is to, you would have to make sure that you're not running the ESY program at the same time that you're actually running an official school day program. So that's where, we would try to get into these intricacies during the planning process and identify what makes most sense for you. But I think there are opportunities for both ways. The opportunity itself, we just had a question come in. Is this for elementary only? Additional day school year funding is for pre-K through 5. And so for any participating LEAs, we would need you to at a minimum have a core campus that you're looking at that is elementary. You can then add on additional campuses that are different grade bands as well, but we do need folks that are planning to use ADSY funding.
Thanks,
All right.
Ryan.
Yeah, feel free to keep popping in questions. We'll have some more time here in a second. But let me jump through these final slides here. So first is application timeline. As you're taking a look at this, our application opens July 19th and closes, it closes August 20th. We'll then take a look at the applications we'll be reviewing in early September. And we'll be looking to make those preliminary award notifications by September 10th. We'll then go through the negotiation process, and we are planning to have no goods out ideally by December 1st, 21. Key point here is the earlier we can get started planning for something like a redesign, the better. And so if your district has policies that prohibit pre-award prior to a NOGA being signed, we highly encourage you to take a look at those and see if that's something that might be waivable with your board for the TCLAS opportunity. Some key things to take a look at here for application. We have on the TCLAS website a guidance document. Those are some of the screenshots that I had there at those final slides. There's also a budget calculator that can help you estimate what you would actually receive based off of the selections that you're making. And then we'll have an application that goes live the week of 7/19. That's going to be a Qualtrics survey application. So be on the lookout for that. Also highlighting here, we do have a general TCLAS overview webinar that is posted on our webpage that took place on June 30th. So if you need some more information around TCLAS, you might want to start there. We do have decision point specific webinars that took place throughout the course of this week. I think this is actually the last one. So those all should be either posted already on the TCLAS website or will be posted imminently, including this one here. And then finally, I know we're talking through a lot of different pieces here just in decision 7 alone, let alone the 10 decisions that we have across TCLAS. And so we are setting a series of TCLAS office hours on Wednesdays, starting the week of July 26th. So highly encourage folks to take a look there. That will give us a good opportunity to kind of talk through any specifics about what this might mean for your district. And give a little bit more context as you've had a chance to let this information sink in, maybe take a closer look at the guidance document and are really taking a look at what makes most sense for your district. So again, these are the webinars. I believe all of them have taken place by now. And then we would love to gauge interest. And so if you are interested in decision 7 or any of the other decision points in TCLAS, we would love to know. That will help us plan, that will help us kind of get our ducks in a row as much as possible prior to the application closing date. So feel free to go to bit.ly/TCLAS-interest-form. I believe bit.ly is case sensitive, so do keep an eye out for the I and the F there. But we would love to know, so please fill that out if you haven't had a chance to do so already. And with that, any additional questions for TCLAS, please direct them to tclass@tea.texas.gov. And any decision 7 or ADSY specific questions, you can direct to the ADSY inbox, ADSY@tea.texas.gov as well. But let me pause here and see if we've had any additional questions come in. And if you do have anything else, we can stay on here for a couple minutes and just make sure we have any questions answered. Great question here around, have campuses shortened the length of their days in addition to adding the 30 days to their calendar? I believe that's happened. I don't know that that's happened on a drastic scale, but I think, as long as you're still meeting the minutes requirement for the 180 days, 75,600 operational minutes over the 180 days, that would be a great opportunity for you to also make that a little bit more sustainable for folks, both students and teachers.
Ryan, can you speak to the kind of the benefits of Decision 7 versus the benefits of Decision 8, since they're both ADSY PEP grants and
Sure.
like similar in that aspect?
Yeah, great. So Decision 7 and Decision 8 are quite similar in that they both have a strong planning program coupled with the use of ADSY funding. Decision 7, as we talked about today, is really geared towards a more comprehensive full year redesign. Our goal is to target districts or campuses at districts at the campus level. So we would be encouraging folks to really take a look at the entire campus, the entire student population, and really driving the campus change as opposed to what you might see more in Decision 8, which is a strong summer program, where most folks that we have participating in the existing ADSY PEP program for strong summer programs, they're looking at a subset of students that are attending their summer program by campus. And so it might look like if you have a 500 student campus, maybe 100 students are attending that summer program for Decision 8, versus we'd be looking to get all 500 students for the redesign and really making it a more comprehensive and thorough, I guess, comprehensive school year as opposed to two distinct opportunities with the summer program.
That's really helpful. Thanks. And then another question I feel like is just valuable is around the 180 days support. Can you speak to like why that support, how new it is, and where it comes into play in terms of what we've seen in the past with districts
Sure.
struggling to get to that 180, and how this could really change that in terms of qualifying districts for ADSY?
Yeah, that's a great flag. So one of the statutory requirements of additional day school year is that each participating campus, in order to access additional funding for the additional days, needs to first have a base calendar, a base academic calendar of 180 days. And we know right now across the state that the average is lower than 180 days. And so the additional funding doesn't kick in until you reach 180. And so to bridge that gap between whatever your district is at right now at the campus level and getting to 180, we have seen a number of districts, understandably, that is a barrier for them, right? Both financially as well as just logistically. And so in order to ease kind of the financial burden of that side of things, support, this operational funding support is a huge boost for folks. And this is provided at each participating campus that you would identify, both for Support 7 as well as Support 8, the Strong Summer Program. And so I encourage you to take a look at both of those if this is something that you've considered ADSY in the past and that has been a financial burden for you. This could be hopefully the game changer that you would need, at least something to take a look at, and in providing that additional funding to help get over that barrier.
That's great. Thanks.
Great.
Any other questions, guys?
Awesome. Well, feel free again to reach out to the emails that we had on the screen here at the end. And then also we do again have those, just plugging those office hours starting July 26th or the week of July 26th. And so take a look at those on the TCLAS website on TEA's webpage. Thank you everyone for joining. Also would love to see any interest and please fill out this form if you are interested. This is certainly non-binding, but we'd love to gauge like who is taking a look at this and help us plan as well. Thanks for your time, and looking forward to discussing this further with folks.
Thanks, everyone. Be sure to check out the TCLAS guidance document online for a more comprehensive walkthrough of what the TCLAS application will look like. And it's a great time before the application opens, July 19th, to be reviewing the guidance document with your district administrative leaders to really decide what are the best initiatives and decisions for your team to apply to. Thank you.
All right, thanks.